Dear friends, today our conversation will focus on a topic that concerns each of us. Last month, I had the opportunity to meet the Johnson family from a small town in Ohio. In their cozy living room over a cup of tea, Mary Johnson, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair, spoke about her husband Tom, who passed away 6 months ago. She spoke of this surprisingly calmly, even with a kind of bright smile. Mary shared, I often think about what happens to the souls of our loved ones right after they leave this world. Where do they go? What do they feel? Do they stay close to us? These are questions that everyone who has lost loved ones asks themselves. Today, answers can be found based on the experiences of thousands of people who have undergone clinical death, on scientific research, and on the wisdom of various spiritual traditions. The topic of the soul's transition to another world has always been surrounded by mystery. Many are afraid to even think about it, pushing those thoughts away. But fear dissipates when we come to understand that death is not the end of the journey, but merely a transition to a new stage of the soul's existence. It's like moving to a new house. It's exciting, a little scary, but something new and important awaits ahead. Every day, hundreds of thousands of people around the world say goodbye to their loved ones. And each one of them asks the question, what happens to the soul of a loved one in the first hours after departure? Why are the first 24 hours so important? The ancients said that it is during these 24 hours that the soul makes its most important journey, saying goodbye to earthly life and preparing for a new stage of existence. Today, we will walk this path together step by step. The conversation will not only be about what happens to the soul, but also about how this knowledge can help us, the living, accept the departure of our loved ones and continue to live on, keeping their bright memory in our hearts. For understanding what happens after physical death can bring comfort and strength to those who remain here on earth. Are you ready to embark on this difficult yet important journey of knowledge? Let's lift the veil of mystery together and talk about what usually remains beyond our understanding, but is so important for each of us. The moment a person leaves this life is merely the beginning of the soul's incredible journey. According to the testimonies of people who have undergone clinical death, something incredible happens in the first minutes. The soul begins to slowly and smoothly separate from the physical body. Martha Wilson, 72 years old, from Minnesota, who experienced clinical death during a complex heart surgery, describes it as a sensation of incredible lightness and freedom. It felt as if you were taking off a heavy winter coat on a warm spring day, Martha recounted after returning to life. No pain, no fear, just an amazing feeling of liberation. Similar descriptions can be found in thousands of testimonies from people who have experienced near-death experiences, regardless of their religious beliefs, age, or social status. In these first minutes, many note that they can see what is happening around them as if from above. They describe in detail the actions of the doctors, the conversations of the nurses, even objects that are in other rooms of the hospital. Modern science has yet to fully explain this phenomenon, but numerous documented cases confirm the validity of such observations. Interestingly, during these moments, consciousness becomes incredibly clear. People note that they can think more clearly and perceive reality more fully than ever while alive. James Peterson, an experienced physician from Boston who dedicated 40 years to studying near-death experiences, states, "The brain may stop functioning, but consciousness continues to exist." This is one of the most astonishing phenomena that modern science encounters. In the first minutes after physical death, the soul usually remains close to the body. This time can be compared to waking from a deep sleep. It takes some time to recognize the new state. Many souls at this moment observe what is happening with interest, but without fear or worry. They see the grief of their loved ones, the attempts at resuscitation if they are made, but perceive all of this as if from the outside, without prior emotional involvement. During this period, the soul begins to notice that it can pass through physical objects, move at the speed of thought, and perceive the surrounding world in a completely new way. It is the time for the first introduction to a new reality, where the usual physical laws do not apply, and the soul learns to exist in its new state. In the first 6 hours after physical departure, the soul continues its amazing journey. During this period, it is still closely connected to the earthly world through what is called the silver cord, a thin energetic connection. This ancient concept appears in the traditions of various peoples, from Native Americans to Eastern teachings. Many seers describe it as a glowing silver thread connecting the soul to the body. The Brown family from New Jersey shared a remarkable story. After the passing of their father, all family members independently felt his presence in the house for several hours. The little granddaughter even talked to the invisible grandfather, and the beloved dog behaved as if the owner was still nearby. Such cases are not rare. Souls often stay near their loved ones to ensure that they are all right. During this period, the soul begins to understand that it can communicate with the living through dreams, through unexpected memories, or even through random signs. Sarah Thompson, a psychologist from Portland who works with people who have experienced loss, notes, many clients report that in the first hours after the departure of a loved one, suddenly stopped clocks would start working again. The radio would turn on unexpectedly, or special birds would appear at the window. During these hours, the soul often visits places that were important during its life. This could be the childhood home, a favorite garden, the workplace, or other significant locations. At this point, the soul begins to understand that the material world no longer holds the same significance. Things that seem so important in life lose their allure. It is especially important during this period that the soul can feel the love and prayers of its loved ones. Each kind thought, each warm memory, each sincere prayer creates a bright energy that assists the soul in its journey. This is why in many traditions, it is customary to gather together in the first hours after someone's departure, to remember the good moments and to pray. This time can be compared to a farewell walk before a long journey. The soul seems to walk around familiar places, bidding farewell to loved ones, collecting the last impressions of earthly life. At the same time, it begins to feel the pull of another world, where the next stage of its journey awaits. In the period from 6 to 12 hours after physical departure, the soul enters an important phase of awareness of its new state. This time is often compared to waking from a long sleep, as understanding of the new reality gradually comes. During this period, remarkable meetings with spiritual guides begin to occur. The experience of the Anderson family from Minnesota is particularly telling. After the departure of grandmother Elizabeth, all family members noted unusual events. The grandson Michael, who was especially close to his grandmother, shared how during these hours he felt the presence not only of her, but also of the long-departed grandfather. It felt as if Grandpa had come to meet Grandma, he later told his mother. At this time, the soul begins to see those who have departed earlier: parents, spouses, friends. Many people who have experienced clinical death describe these encounters. They speak of an extraordinary feeling of joy and recognition, as if meeting old friends after a long separation. The souls of loved ones come to help in this transition, to explain what is happening and to provide comfort. Dr. Susan White, who has studied near-death experiences for over 20 years, notes an interesting pattern. During this period, souls often see a bright, yet not blinding light. This light is described as alive, intelligent, and radiating unconditional love and acceptance. Many say that in the presence of this light, all earthly fears and anxieties dissolve. During this period, an astonishing transformation of perception occurs. The soul begins to understand that life does not end with physical death, but continues in a new form. There comes the realization that all earthly problems, conflicts, and grievances were part of a larger lesson, and now they lose their significance in the face of eternity. The Anderson family recalls how, during these hours, there was a special atmosphere of peace in the home. Even those who usually dealt with loss very heavily felt an inexplicable tranquility. This often happens when the soul comes to accept its new state and begins to share this calmness with its loved ones. It is during this period that it is important for family and friends to gather together, share memories, and support one another. Their love and memory create a kind of bridge along which the soul can move on peacefully, knowing that it leaves its loved ones safe and supported by one another. In the period from 12 to 18 hours after departure, the soul enters the most crucial stage of its journey, the time of choosing a path. Each soul at this moment has the opportunity to see various options for its future existence. It is similar to a traveler stopping at a crossroads and carefully studying the signs to choose the right direction. Rachel Parker, a nurse from Chicago with 30 years of experience working in hospice, shares her astonishing observations. According to her, even the most anxious patients during this period after departure seem to be enveloped in an atmosphere of deep tranquility. Relatives often note that the features of the face become peaceful, as if the person has finally found the answer to an important question. During this time, there is particularly active interaction with other souls. These can be the souls of loved ones, as well as those linked to important life lessons. Many who have experienced clinical death describe these encounters as an amazing experience of understanding without words, in which souls communicate directly, sharing experiences and knowledge. The Clark family from Oregon shared an unusual story. After the passing of their mother, during those hours, all the electronic clocks in the house showed different times, and their mother's favorite flowers, white lilies, suddenly bloomed, even though it was out of season. It was as if she was letting us know that time now flows differently, and that life continues in a new form, daughter Lisa recounted. It is in this period that it becomes especially important to let go of the departed soul. Intense grief and despair of loved ones can create energetic attachments that hinder the soul's path. This does not mean that one should stop loving or forgetting. It is important to find a balance between memory and acceptance of inevitable changes. The love of the close ones should become support, not an anchor. Many spiritual traditions speak of the fact that during these hours, the soul can see the consequences of its earthly actions, but not as punishment or reward, rather as lessons and experiences. This is a time of deep understanding of the interconnectedness between all living beings and of the realization of the unity of all that exists. The soul begins to perceive earthly life as one stage of an infinite journey, where each encounter and each event had its meaning and significance. In the last 6 hours of the first day, from the 18th to the 24th hour, the soul prepares for the final transition. This period can be compared to the conclusion of an important stage of a journey, when the traveler gathers the last belongings before continuing on their way. During this time, a particularly deep and final farewell to the earthly world occurs. Emily and George Watson, researchers from Arizona who have dedicated their lives to studying near-death experiences, note that during this period, unusual natural phenomena often occur. Their archive contains hundreds of testimonies about unexpected rainbows, unusual bird behavior, and sudden bursts of warm wind in the winter, as if nature itself is participating in this farewell. During this time, souls often visit all those who were important in their lives, even if these people are far away. Many recount unexpected dreams or sudden memories of the departed person during these hours. Betty Simmons from Florida recalls how after her brother's passing in California, she woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling of his presence and the scent of his favorite coffee in the air. At this period, the soul is already fully aware of its new state and is ready to move on. Earthly attachments gradually weaken, giving way to a new understanding of reality. This does not mean that the soul stops loving its loved ones. On the contrary, love becomes purer and deeper, freeing itself from earthly conventions and limitations. For those who remain, it is important to create a calm and peaceful atmosphere during these hours. One can light a candle, quietly talk to the departed, and express gratitude for all the good that was shared together. Many note that it is precisely during these hours that a special feeling of peace and acceptance of what has happened arrives. Interestingly, pets often respond very sensitively to what is happening during this period. They may behave unusually, as if they are watching something invisible, or on the contrary, they become especially calm and serene. This is another confirmation that the process of the soul's transition is a natural part of the great cycle of life, which is felt by all living beings. By the end of these 24 hours, the soul is usually ready to move on to those spheres of existence that lie beyond our usual understanding. It carries with it the love of its loved ones, the experiences of its lived life, and a new, deeper understanding of the meaning of existence. Understanding what happens to the soul in the first days after departure helps many cope with the fear of death. Patrick Williams, a psychotherapist from a senior support center in Boston, notes that through the awareness of the naturalness of this process, comes the acceptance of inevitable changes in life. Maintaining a connection with departed loved ones can be done in various ways. This does not mean constantly mourning or living in the past. On the contrary, it is about keeping a bright memory and gratitude. The Roberts family created a wonderful tradition. Every year on the anniversary of Grandma Grace's passing, they gather together, prepare her favorite dishes, and share stories from her life. The grandchildren who have never met their grandmother feel a connection with her and with family traditions through these stories. It is important to remember that the fear of death is often the fear of the unknown. When we understand that physical departure is not the end, but a transition, it becomes easier. Many people who have experienced clinical death speak of an incredible feeling of freedom and a lack of fear. They return to life with a new understanding and often completely lose their fear of death. For those who remain, there are simple practices that help cope with loss. One can create a small memory altar with photographs and mementos, keep a journal recording memories and feelings, or plant a tree in memory of the departed person. Some find comfort in volunteer work or in helping others who are going through the loss of loved ones. Dr. Sarah Miller, who works with elderly patients, advises her clients to prepare for the transition in advance, not with fear, but with understanding and acceptance. When a person understands that death is not a black hole, but a door to new experiences, everything about their attitude toward life changes. They begin to appreciate every moment, becoming kinder and wiser, she says. It is especially important to learn to let go. This does not mean forgetting. It means allowing the soul to continue its journey while keeping love and gratitude in the heart. As Martha Stevens, who lost her husband 2 years ago, says, "Now I know that love is stronger than death." It does not end with the departure of a loved one. It simply takes on a new form. In conclusion of this important conversation, I want to say to everyone who is currently experiencing the loss of a loved one, the soul is immortal, and the connection with our loved ones is never completely severed. Understanding what happens in the first days after departure helps to cope with the heaviness of loss and to find inner peace. The Anderson family, who lost their eldest son Michael last year, shared a remarkable observation. Linda, Michael's mother, recounts, "When we stopped grieving desperately and began to remember the bright moments associated with our son, amazing coincidences started happening in our lives. Michael's favorite songs played in unexpected places. His favorite flowers bloomed out of season. It was as if he was letting us know, everything is fine, life goes on in a new form." For those who have recently accompanied a loved one on their final journey, it is important to remember, the first 24 hours are not a time for mourning, but a time for support and love. Your positive thoughts, kind memories, and prayers create a special light for the soul, helping it on its journey. Do not hold it back with your grief. Let it go with love and gratitude. Every life is a precious gift, and every departure is not an end, but a transition to a new beginning. Ancient wisdom says, "The souls of those we love never die. They remain in the rustling of leaves, in the rays of the sun, in the drops of rain, in our hearts and memories. They continue to live in the good deeds they performed, in the lives they touched, in the love they left behind." Remember that here and now is the most important time of our lives. Cherish every moment spent with loved ones. Speak words of love, share warmth, create good memories, for it is these moments that become the light that illuminates the soul's path in its eternal journey. And may the knowledge of what happens to the soul in the first days after departure be a source of comfort and support for you. Remember, love is the only force capable of overcoming the boundary between worlds. It remains with us forever, connecting souls with invisible but strong threads of eternity. And in conclusion, I want to thank each of you who was with us today in this difficult but important conversation. If you found this material helpful, please subscribe to the channel. There are many more interesting topics ahead that we will discuss together. Leave your comments, share your stories and thoughts. Your experience is very important to our community. Click on the bell so you won't miss any new videos. Until next time, take care of yourself and your loved ones. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. We are always here.